Good morning, everyone. It's JP here from Trails and Details, and today I'm going to geek out about this 34-year-old Toyota Camry from 1990 for about, I don't know, 15 to 20 minutes. Yeah, I'm not going to geek out over a Lamborghini Countach or a first-generation Dodge Viper. No, I'm going to geek out over this 34-year-old Grandpa Mobile. So I'm going to start off with a bit of history of the Toyota Camry, then some specifications and some features about this particular model, generation, and then some things I did to this particular car. So yeah, let's get started. And as I'm talking, I'll do my best to walk around a little bit so you guys can see, for now, the exterior of the car. So the name Camry originally started in Japan, and it wasn't a standalone car. They called it the Toyota Celica Camry, which is kind of interesting because they did the same thing for the Supra, where the first time the name ever popped up was, of course, the Toyota Celica Supra, and well, I guess they kind of did the same for the Toyota Camry. But anyway, the first generation, or at least that people want to call it, the actual proper standalone Camry, started in the mid 1980s, and it was wildly popular in America because, well, it was a very nicely made car in terms of fit and finish, because things like panel gaps and everything were just absolutely atrocious when you compare it to the GM cars of that era. And it was very reliable. They were a little bit sensitive to rusting, unfortunately. But yeah, if you live in a dry state with a high heat and everything, this thing would just last forever. As proven by this particular Camry, which after 34 years still looks quite good if you ask me. Now, this is a second generation Camry, and there were a lot of trim models available. Now, before we move on, very quickly, I just want to point out that this is an EU spec Camry. I know that the Camry nameplate is very popular, probably most popular in the US. So anyone watching this video is probably going to be from the US. But just keep that in mind, this is a EU spec Camry. So if you're going to see any differences in maybe the headlights or the interior, that's probably because this one is made for European roads. So now there were a lot of trim models available for this model, and I'll kind of simplify it down to engine choices. Now it started off with a 1.8 four-cylinder with about 90 horsepower, which was for the late 80s, early 90s, it was adequate, but nothing special. Then you had the mid-range model, the 2-liter GLI, which this one is, 2-liter GLI 16 valves, and the top of the line 2.5-liter V6, which had 160 horsepower. Now, interestingly enough, there's not a lot of difference between the 2.5-liter V6 and the 2-liter four-cylinder in terms of performance. The V6 had 160 horsepower, this four-cylinder has 122 horsepower, but in terms of torque, they're not that much different. In performance figures, let's say 0 to 60 time, it wasn't that much of a difference, but the main choice for going with the V6 was, of course, the smoothness of the powertrain. A V6 was much more smooth than a four-cylinder, and that's why you'd opt for the V6. So that is kind of the three engine choices you had in terms of petrol. You also had a diesel version, which is a turbo diesel, which was, yeah, a bit of a snail, but you chose that mainly because of the fuel efficiency and the gas mileage. So this model is a 2-liter GLI with a 2-liter four-cylinder 16 valve, and yeah, allow me to open up the hood and show you the engine. All right, and here she is, the 2-liter 16 valve. It's the 3S FE model, and again, it's a 2-liter 16 valve, and it produces 122 horsepower, which is really not that impressive in terms of horsepower figures. To compare, in the late 80s, you already had the 4G63 from Mitsubishi. That was also a 2-liter 16 valve engine with 4 cylinders. Also, without a turbo, it would produce 150 horsepower. So this is not that impressive, but then again, Toyota didn't make this for high horsepower output. They made this to be kind of low stress, very reliable, and decent low to mid kind of power, pulling power, so you say. And yeah, they definitely pulled it off with this one. This engine is pretty bulletproof. They are very reliable. They can go 200, 300,000 miles without a problem. And so far, this car has done about 190,000 miles. And yeah, it's still the original engine, still the original transmission and everything. Very little issues. It fires up and runs like a dream. Even when I let it sit for a week, it doesn't matter. This thing just fires right up. So that is the engine. Let's go ahead and walk around the car a little bit more. I'll point out a few other things. So it has these hubcaps, which are original. The car also had an option of, I believe, 14-inch alloys or 15-inch. I think it was 14-inch but this just has the basic hubcaps. Another cool thing I want to point out from the exterior is that 16 valves right here. Now these days 16 or 4 valves per cylinder is very, very common. It's not something to brag about. But in the late 80s it was kind of still a bit of a commodity, which is exactly why many Japanese sports cars of the mid 80s, for instance, always had that sticker like dual overhead cam 16 valve turbo, like really big on the side. And that's because 4 valves per cylinder was still a bit of a commodity or a specialty, which is exactly why they put it here. But look, they also put the 4 valves per cylinder, the logo, on this. So that's really cool. That's a really nice detail. You might notice some parking sensors. Obviously, they're not real. They're not original, I mean. The previous owner put them on. They're nice, they're practical, they're handy, but they kind of ruined the original look. So yeah, I mean, finding an original Camry bumper for this generation in Europe is going to be really hard. So for now, it's just, you know, maybe I'll very lightly spray paint them, so at least they match the color of the rear bumper, but that's it. So another really cool thing about this particular Camry is it's got a full stainless steel exhaust system, which costs quite a pretty penny. So someone, the first owner who had this for 33 years, really put some care into this. Now, as you can see, this being a late 80s car, it was brought out in 1989. It still has that very late 80s, early 90s kind of design. You know, cars of the mid 80s were very boxy with very sharp angles, whereas cars in the mid to late 90s were like total jelly beans, with the the king of jelly beans being the second generation Ford Taurus. I'll put a picture up right now so you guys can see. That was the ultimate jelly bean. And this kind of sits in between, and you can really see that because the lines are still very kind of simple and straight, but it has very, you can see that the edges are starting to get more round here and here. Again, if this was a mid 80s car, these would be very, like, you know, very angular, very sharp. This one is starting to kind of have more flowy curves, so to say, but still have a very straight and simple kind of body style, if you will. And that's, yeah, I'm a total sucker for cars that look like that. I think it looks very elegant, especially in today's world where, you know, you have so many cars that look, they try to look so aggressive with tons of lines and angles and curves. And then when you compare it to this just looks downright elegant, in my humble opinion. So that's a bit of a look on the exterior. Let's go ahead and hop in the car and I'll show you guys the interior and some cool features. So here I have 2 keys, and the way you get into this car, again, this is before any sort of remote lock or whatever, blah blah. First you have 1 key, which is this one right here. Yeah, this one unlocks the door. You just gotta put it in there, twist it, there we go. And then the other key, this one, it says Toyota. That is actually to start the engine, so that's pretty unique. All right, so I decided to move the car a little bit because the lighting is much better. So here we are into the interior of the Toyota Camry, and again, you can see it's very classic, late 80s, early 90s. You have very simple analog gauges, though John Davis from Motor Week would be disappointed because it doesn't have a volt and the oil pressure readout. Fun fact for people that know, John Davis was a host of Motor Week, and for some reason he kept calling it the Camry instead of Camry. I don't know why, but it took him like a decade to finally start saying it correctly. Anyway, so as I said, you have very simple analog readouts, and you know, I really like this. I'm not a fan of the digital dashes of today. I think they look kind of tacky. I just like this kind of simple and effective look. Now you can see that the dash, or like this part, I'm sorry, English is not my first language, I don't know what to call this, but you can see it really protrudes forward with like switches on the side. And this is very kind of, I guess, Japanese, because you know, other cars had this too. The S13, the R32 Skyline kind of had the same dash design. So let me point out some really cool features of the car. Let me just unlock the door so you guys can see it better. So here we have a switch where you can select between normal and super. Now, I'm not sure if American models had this, but in Europe, we have, generally speaking, 2 choices of fuel when it comes to gasoline, so not diesel, which is Euro 95 and Euro 98. Euro 95 is normal, and Euro 98 is super. And this kind of adjusts the ignition time, I believe, for which fuel you're running. Now, I'm running Euro 98 all the time because, unfortunately, here in the Netherlands at least, Euro 95 has a good amount of ethanol in it, which is really bad for like fuel lines and everything. So I always put premium gas into this car. Right next to it we have the cruise control. Yes, this is the cruise control. It's not a fancy button on the screen. Again, or on the steering wheel. It has no buttons on the steering wheel, just a horn. This is your cruise control, and you manually adjust this lever if you want to go up or down or memorize or turn it off. So that's really cool. I've never seen something like this before. Now, this being an upscale Toyota, again, you know, the Corolla was kind of the base model, and then a step up was basically the Camry. It was a bit bigger, you got more features, so you got electrically adjusted mirrors, so that's really cool. You got power windows all around with door lock and window lock, so that's pretty nice. And here we have the center console of the car. Now, unfortunately, the previous owner decided to put this aftermarket stereo into this. I kind of understand, but it's, you know, it kind of ruins the look of the car a little bit. Unfortunately, he put it in with all these screws right here in this metal plate. So realistically, if I want to change this to an original one, you know, assuming I even find an original center console and, you know, stereo for this car, I might have to deal with holes that he drilled into. So yeah, I might change this, but for now, you know, it is what it is. Now, this being a late 80s car and this being a Japanese car, of course you have cigarette lighters, but you don't just have one right here. No, 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 no. You have 2, 3 whole cigarette lighters. This is just crazy to me, because I understand these two, because, you know, you're sitting right here, but then why have another one here? Like, am I supposed to light 2 cigarettes at the same time? I don't know what's going on here, but that's pretty cool. And of course, you got an ashtray, which again, in cars of today, you don't see anymore, because, you know, they just don't want you to smoke in the car, or they don't want to demotivate you from smoking, I guess. So you have a digital clock right here, which again is very, very cool, very retro, if you will. You got your 2 fan controls right here, I guess what they're called. Got a glove box right there. Another interesting feature is the fact that you can see in the door here, you have this kind of nice, practical, big kind of, yeah, what are these called? Cubby holes. But that means that there's no speakers in the doors. The speakers are actually right here and right there. So those are your speakers. You have 2 of them. That's it. That's all you get. Now, the seats, they are very kind of soft, plushy seats. Again, they don't make them like this anymore. Everything has to be so damn like stiff and sporty. These, as soon as you sit down, you're like, oh man, you know, it feels like you're kind of sitting down in an old but still very comfortable couch, you know, like that sofa feeling, like, oh man, you really just sit down and oh, it's just super comfy. I can't just talk. These seats are lovely. I wish you guys could kind of experience it, but they sit great. And you can see that the interior still looks absolutely amazing. Again, the previous owners did an amazing job of preserving this. Here we have the back seat. Again, pretty nice. Actually, let's go ahead and sit in the back seat. So here you have the back seat, and even with me, I'm 6'1". I still have a decent amount of leg room, even with the way I drive. I drive the seat kind of far, so plenty of room in the back, plenty of headroom too. My head is not reaching the surface, so that's nice, or the roof. Does come with an armrest, so you can kind of chill. And again, because this is a late 80s car, a second ashtray. So you can also smoke in the back. You can smoke in the front, you can smoke in the back. There we go. So yeah, that's mostly the interior of the Camry, and as you can see, this one is still in very, very good shape, and I do my best to try and keep it like that. All right, so real quick, let's check out the trunk of this car. It actually has a really, really big trunk. It's just amazing how much stuff you can put back here. The seats also fold, so you have like a ton of space if you want to. You can see some loose cables here. The previous owner was a younger kid. He did put a subwoofer in it. Luckily, he didn't do much apart from that. You know, the stereo, he changed that, and he put the cables in. He also put some LED running lights on the front, which I disconnected because I'm not a fan of those. Anyway, let's talk about the trunk. You can see, very spacious. I still have the original Camry brochure. So these are the alloys I was talking about, these rims here, so in case you're wondering. And I know that these hubcaps are original because, look at that. Look at the hubcaps and then look at these. Yes, these are definitely the original ones. So this is very nice. By the way, it's all in Dutch because I'm from the Netherlands. So in case you're wondering what this weird language is, it's Dutch. So very, very nice little yeah, brochure about the interior, the exterior, performance-wise. It's really cool that this car still has it. What's also really cool, it still has the original toolkit from when it was released in 1990. So this is actually really cool. And I know this is original because if you look at the tools, yeah, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it says Toyota Japan. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there you go. Toyota Japan. So that's really, really cool. So this is all original stuff. It's got a little bit of rust on it, but it's otherwise in just great shape. This is just amazing that this is still right here. And the bag is deteriorating a little bit, which is unfortunate, but still, the fact that it has it, that is just so cool. So let me just put that back here. You got a little space here where you can store stuff. That's kind of nice. And yeah, that's the trunk. Very practical, very nice. Also very, still in very good shape. Unfortunately, there's one spot here. You can see there's a bit of rust there. I'll have to address that soon, which I am planning on doing. So let me just close the trunk. And let me close the door so you guys can once again get a good look of the exterior. Because as you're looking at this video, you're probably thinking, wow, man, this Camry is in great shape. And it really is. The first owner bought it in 1990, so he bought it brand new. He drove around for it for 33 whole years, so most of the ownership. And he kept it in the garage. He really, did the proper maintenance, and he really looked after it. I mean, it's still incredibly straight considering it's 34 years old. And it's the Netherlands is kind of a humid, can be cold kind of weather, so it's not ideal for preserving cars, so to say. So yeah, it still looks incredibly straight. Now, is it perfect? Absolutely not. And I'll show you guys some of the imperfections. So yeah, it's got a nasty rust spot right here, which again, I will address. It has some paint damage right here. As you can see, rubbers are starting to deteriorate right there, right here. This is just very common for cars this old. It's just rubber, it's going to dry out, it's going to crack, it's going to fade. That's just how it is. There's another spot right here, which you can see it's also rusting, so there's probably a lot of rust behind this part as well. Which is why I'm going to probably just completely restore and repaint this entire door, including this part here at the wheel well. So that's a bit of yeah, a not so nice spot. It has some yeah, some body damage. Well, not body damage, but paint damage, I guess. So here it's been kind of someone hit this like that. So I put some touch-up paint here, so at least it looks like that. But that's ideally, I would also like to respray this front bumper. Same here. You guys can see it right there. This used to be all white. Again, I just filled up with touch-up paint for now to make this at least look half decent. The grille, you can see that the chrome is starting to fade right here. It's starting to like peel off, so to say. So again, it's another thing on the to-do list. I'm going to take this off and of course use some spray can of like chrome paint, and that should look very nice again. So that's a bit unfortunate. And another thing, which is also a lot of Japanese cars suffer from this, is kind of weaker paint compared to German cars, for instance. And that's the the paint just going flat. So here the clear coat is starting to fail and the paint is starting to oxidize. So this, ideally, I also want to respray, and it's on the other side as well. You can see right here. So that's unfortunate. So you can see it definitely has some rough spots, but for 34 years, again, in a climate which is not the friendliest towards cars that are sensitive to rust, this is actually not bad. So I guess I'll talk a little bit about how I got this car and why I got this car. I've been a car guy for my entire life. I've owned many cars. I've owned a first generation Mitsubishi Eclipse. Again, if you live in America, that's the first generation DSM. I've owned a Nissan Skyline R33 with a giant turbo, made about 515 horsepower. The thing was nuts. I've had a Toyota MR2, also a very fun car. Yet for some reason, this car is the car that gave me the biggest smile, which is so weird when you look at it on paper. But I really am a sucker for kind of Japanese cars of this era, this kind of boxy shape, but not too boxy. Like I said, late 80s. The seats are super plush. The interior, it's got a stick shift. By the way, about the stick shift, just one more thing. I know you guys from the US are probably looking at that and thinking, oh my God, a stick shift, that's very rare. Generally speaking, when it comes to Camrys, yes. But here in Europe, or at least in the Netherlands, the, the standard is a stick shift. So most cars came with a stick shift. and an automatic was considered to be a premium, so to say. So if you look at this, oh my God, it's this Camry with a stick shift. Yes, but in Europe, this was pretty common. So just knowing that, just keep that in mind. It's very smooth. It goes through the gears very, very nicely, by the way. So that's awesome. Really, really nice. It just, again, I don't think it's ever been swapped out. I think this is still the original gearbox, and it just shifts amazing. Even the bushings are still quite nice. It doesn't feel like you're stirring a wooden spoon in a pot of soup or something like that. So bit of a sidetrack there. All right, and last but not least, I'll take you guys for a little bit of a spin in the Camry to show you guys how it drives and everything to the best of my abilities. So let's fire her up. Of course, it's already warm because I drove it a bit, so it's not completely fair. But what I can tell you, just have to believe me, is that even when it's sat for a week or it's cold or whatever, it just fires up right away. So let's go. I'm gonna start off in a small town here. I'm just gonna drive a bit, and I'll talk about how it drives. So let me start off, of course, with the basics. The clutch, I don't think it's ever been replaced. I couldn't find it in the service history, and it feels amazing. It shudders or stutters a little bit, but other than that, it doesn't feel extremely heavy. The gearbox doesn't grind gears. It's just amazing. And again, the ride quality is what kind of fascinates me the most. Now, the thing is that it's very soft, which means if you try to corner fast, you know, it's gonna go all over the place like this. But that's really not how you drive this car. You just kind of, you know, casually stroll along with the car. You just go for a nice little drive, relaxed, cruising. That's the type of stuff you do with this car. So when you're not driving sporty, you're not taking corners fast, it just floats over everything, and I mean everything. Especially for me, someone that used to own a Nissan Skyline, MR2, Mitsubishi Eclipse. All those cars were lowered, they had very stiff suspension. So, you know, they all were very rough when it came to speed bumps or any, like, you know, uneven things in the road, even potholes, you name it. This, it just flies over speed bumps, it flies over, it just irons out everything. And for a car that's, again, 34 years old, I know the shocks have been replaced though, but still, for a car that drives 34 years old, it drives immensely comfortable. The seats, very plush, very nice, again, like you're sitting in a very comfortable, nice, old school couch or sofa. You got this big steering wheel, so when you're driving along, you know, you can actually hold your hand, I don't know if you guys can see this, but you can hold your right hand on your right leg and just very gently steer with this, with your thumb and index finger, so it's very relaxed driving. And again, the engine's very quiet, it's surprisingly smooth for a 4-cylinder, especially because it's, you know, 34 years old. It just runs like a dream. And it's fun. It's really kind of fun to drive this as well, which sounds weird because it's not fast, you know, it's not quick in the corners, but it's fun in a way is that it's extremely bare bones. And that's very, you know, you can't do that anymore in today's world, where cars need to have so many safety standards. They need to have this standard, that standard, you know, traction control, electronic stability control, all these kind of driver aids that you just don't have in this. You don't. It's just, you got a stick, you got an engine up front, you got a steering wheel, good luck, you know. You know, you still have to roll gears and everything. It's all just you. And that's the kind of fun that I mean. It's all very, I mean, again, this maybe might sound stupid, but you feel very connected to the car. I really do. Again, it feels weird, but that's how I feel driving this car. And it's just a sea of comfort. Despite this being 34 years old, again, I'm going to repeat myself here, it drives amazing. I can't say enough good things about this car. Is it perfect? Like I said, absolutely not. Definitely not. But it has a decent amount of go, you know. When you want it to go, it's not bad. It can keep up with traffic just perfectly fine. Especially here in Europe, because, you know, an average car in America is way faster than an average car here in Europe. So it's just absolutely fine. The only downside, of course, in this car is the fuel efficiency. It's not great. I'm getting about 32 miles per gallon, so that's not bad. But like I said, I have to pump Euro 98. And I'm not sure about the conversion rates, but I believe 1 gallon of Euro 98 here is like $8 to $9. So you can do the math there. I know in America, depending on the state, it can be like $4 or like 3 or something like that. But yeah, gas is very expensive. But to me, that's okay because I use this for like kind of Sunday drives, if you will, and that's pretty much it. And that's what it's perfect for. So yeah, that's mostly what I can say about the Camry in terms of the driving. I wish you guys could experience this. It just feels almost brand new. It feels amazing to drive. I mean, my daily driver is a Lexus IS300 and I love that car to death, but you can really see how, you know, sportiness and this kind of stiffness and, you know, especially in the corners and everything, it's so common now. And the car has to be sporty, car has to have stiffness, our car has to have 18-inch wheels with like tires these thin. It's just, you know, this is not that far off from my Lexus in terms of comfort. So yeah, I never thought I would completely fall in love with a 34-year-old Toyota Camry, but here I am. And my goal is to kind of fix the rough spots around this car and just keep it running for as long as I can. I want this to be a time capsule. I want this to stay as original as possible. And yeah, I've already done a few things to it, kind of touched up the paint. So in my weekend, I am a car detailer, so I did a full paint correction. I gave it a nice little sealant and a P&S bead maker, for the people that know, as a topper, so the paint is nicely protected. I've restored the hubcaps. They were kind of yeah, very faded, so I you know, I sanded them down, I resprayed them, so they look very nice now. And I guess I can show you some work I've done under the hood as well. So let me just open up the hood again. Okay, so now under the hood one more time. What I did is I resprayed these kind of heat shields. Now unfortunately, what I wanted to do, of course, because you can see they're kind of rusted all the way through, I wanted to order these at the dealer. And I asked them, hey, can I order heat shields for a 1990 Toyota Camry? And they said, well, we don't know, but we'll have a look for you. And unfortunately, they can't. Many parts of this car, at least in Europe, aren't available to order brand new. So I was like, okay, you know what, screw it. I'm just gonna take this off. I'm gonna respray it so at least it looks half decent, because before, actually what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the car camera like this. And right now I'll show you a picture of what the engine bay was like before. And this is what it's like right now, so you guys can see the difference. So again, I resprayed this, resprayed the bottom part of the engine, so that also looks very nice. I resprayed a lot of these like black cables and everything, and these metal parts as well, to make sure that's nice and black again. I kind of touched up these plugs here. This I also kind of, how do you say, I brushed up with steel wool and then polished as well to make sure that the metal kind of shines again. A lot of the black plastic parts I also kind of polished and, I don't know, like restored, I guess. I'm not sure what the correct word is, but there you go. And just a lot of other things. Now I also kind of brushed up this, so this starter was completely like rusty and brown, so I fixed that. This part right here was also rusty and brown, so I fixed that. So I really tried to make this, even the engine bay, kind of a time capsule, like it is brand new. Now of course it's not brand new, but I'm doing my best to make it look like it's brand new. There's still some things I need to do. There are some leftover cables. I don't know what these are. They're leftover cables from the LED running lights that the guy had, so I have to remove that. These hoses I want to replace because they're starting to crack. As you can see, I got to replace that. That doesn't look quite nice. And a few other things. But again, generally speaking, I think for a 34-year-old car, the engine bay is also quite nice. And yeah, that's a quick overview of the things I did to the engine bay. And well, that's pretty much it. That's all I can say about the Toyota Camry and my Camry in particular. Like I said, I'm hoping to keep driving this as long as I can, keep it in very nice condition, you know, battle the rust, so to say, and just keep it running for as long as I can. I really love this car. Never thought I would. If I would say to myself 10 years ago, you know, you're gonna fall in love with a 34-year-old Toyota Camry, a gray one, I would say you're a fool. But evidently here we are, and I absolutely love this car. So hope you like this video. If you have any questions, leave some comments down below. If you're from the US and you notice some differences, because I'm really curious, let me know this as well, because I'm really curious as to what is different. I know a few things. For instance, the airbag, the steering wheel doesn't have an airbag, and the US one does, and a few other bits, but just let me know that in the comment section. So yeah, there you go. That is me geeking out over my 34-year-old Toyota Camry. And that's pretty much the end of the video. I think I've talked about everything I wanted to talk about. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this. It's a little bit different than what I usually do. But there you go. 34-year-old Toyota Camry. Thank you very much for watching. Have yourself a wonderful day.